Hey, what's up, Hoosier fans? Welcome back to another episode of Under the Hood with IU Football, presented by your Central Indiana Ford dealers, proud sponsor of Indiana Football. Reminder to visit your local Central Indiana Ford dealer today. What a feeling on a Monday after a big-time win over Wisconsin. One Indiana needed badly here, with a chance still out there to get a 13th game and play for bowl eligibility. And this was the first step to do it at the Rock on Saturday. So much fun up there with my buddy Don Fisher calling that game, especially in the second half as things were kind of getting tense and getting dramatic, and IU's defense steps up in a big way. Aaron Casey named Defensive Player of the Week in the Big Ten Conference. I'm not sure there's been a more deserving player this year on any defense based on his effort. We're going to talk about it all. Also, got to give a lot of credit to special teams here in this episode. Chris Freeman with a huge kick to make it a 6-point advantage for IU down the stretch. And no better person to bring in right now. Our special guest in this episode, Indiana special teams coordinator and assistant on defense, working with the Bulls, Casey Teagarden. What's up, KT? How we doing, man? Great to finally get you on the show to talk here a little bit.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's good to have some positive momentum on a little juice on Monday. So
yeah, buddy.
Happy to be here.
No kidding, man. And let's start right there with kind of how things were unfolding. Felt like the defense, and we talk about the second half a lot because they were on the field a bunch defensively. But really from start to finish, with the exception of the explosive play, right in the first half and, a drive or two here or there, what did you see defensively that felt like a pretty dang good, complete effort from this unit?
And they wanted the challenge. I think that was the biggest thing, is we kept getting together in the huddles, in the middle of the change of the quarters or any of those timeouts. Yeah. We kept getting, hey, this is exactly where we want to be. We wanted to be in that situation, put the game on our shoulders. Let's go win this thing, right? Type of mentality of, hey, if they don't score, they can't win. We had the lead already, obviously, at that point. And so our mentality was, they don't score, they can't win. And let's put it on our shoulders. And whatever we have to do, we're going to take care of business.
Well, and I love that mentality from the defense. I mean, there hadn't been too many games this year where we've led, from start to finish, which was the case, in this game. And it feels like the defense is, as you mentioned, up for that challenge to protect that lead and play pretty dang well when you put that kind of responsibility on them. Let's talk about Aaron Casey for a moment. I know he's not, directly in your room, but you obviously spent a lot of time with him and on that side of the ball. So, felt like going back to that Rutgers game was not the best performance really from anybody, right? And I know Coach Allen said he wanted better play, especially from the linebacker group. And man, going back to Penn State a week ago and this game against Wisconsin, feels like those dudes really took that personally, and Aaron Casey was certainly a big piece of that.
Yeah, he's our unquestioned leader, right? When you look at a guy, now he's not an extremely vocal guy, but just his presence alone, the playmaking ability, how physical he is, the trigger that he pulls, the things the intangibles that you want from a linebacker, those physicality traits. He's a phenomenal tackler in space. When he hits you, you feel it. You feel him, right? Just really kind of, I think they did take it personal, as they should have. I think we always look at those things and we all take it personal for sure. But him so more because he is our captain. He is our leader. And, Coach Allen does, man, he really challenges the linebackers. And even though as a defensive guy, I agree with him, he challenges those. You have to lead this defense. And he led with his play, and I know we've talked about it the past couple of days, but he took over that game. Like his mindset.
That's incredible. I'm
getting this forced fumble. I'm just every, the 2-minute sack, at the end of the game. I mean, just all those things that, those are drive killers. When offenses don't have timeouts, we tell our guys all the time, hey, sacks win games in 2-minute situations, right? And so obviously when you have your leader that, can make that type of play at that moment, and then you talk about the strip that he had earlier on in the game too, on the pass across the middle, like he physically willed and took over the game, and that's what you want from those guys.
Yeah, no question. And I want to talk about that play in particular, the fumble, which, had to go to review. It felt like we had our fair share of reviews in this game too. My goodness. That was one of them. But I mean, that's something you guys practice every day, or not every day, but at least every week, right? With the turnover circuit. And that's a piece of it because, I mean, you're not only trying to obviously get the guy down, but he is, and that play is nearly over and he is still fighting for the football. Take us through like that, the mechanics of a play like that.
Yeah. So we have, second man in drill. So obviously, the first defender, your job is to wrap him up, drive your legs, and get him down. But if you're that second guy in there, we want to attack the football. Our mindset is to attack the football. We talk about our DNA on defense, takeaways, tackling, and effort. Right. Well, takeaways and effort, or, if you're the second guy in there, make the conscious effort to strip the football and create that opportunity for us to get the ball back. So that's really what happened as that guy was going down. Ace was able to just get his hand in there. And there's a play actually earlier, in the flat, he is raking at the thing trying to get it out, and he doesn't get it, but it's set it up later in the game. You see his aggressive mindset. And that's what you got to have. You got to have guys that create those opportunities for your defense. But taking the drills, we worked that in practice. Hey, first guys got them wrapped up. Second guy, get in there, find the tip, rip the fingertips off, and get the ball out.
Love that, and love that mentality. And just looking at this, again, looking at the drive chart against Wisconsin, they score a touchdown on their final possession before the first half. They get a touchdown in their first possession of the second half. So you feel like they've got all the momentum in the world. Then what does the defense do? Punt, fumble, punt, downs, fumble to end the game. That is a closing mentality. And when you had so much negativity, and I know you guys don't care about it from the outside looking in, or from inside the walls, but to shut that out, right, over the course of the last 5-6 weeks, whatever it's been, and then to come back and have that kind of mentality when things start to kind of flip, right, when things start to turn, and they could snowball like they have in other games, but it felt like a conscious choice to say, no, not today. And they stood up, and then those final 5 possessions were incredible defensively.
And you think about the Penn State, we clawed and willed our way back in. We kicked a field goal, and then they get the big chunk pass play. Right? But defense, we can't allow this to happen again. That was, put it on us. We're winning. They don't score, we win this game. And, that was, especially after they had those back-to-back drives, like you said, we had to gather those guys on the sideline, look them in the eye and say, this is where we want to be. We're winning this game. Let's take this thing over.
So much fun to watch that transpire. And I know it was probably a little anxiety building for everybody down on the sideline, but that's why we love football, right?
That's
those
right.
moments, that drama, and you want that challenge. And it's clear that that your guys were up for it. Let's talk about a couple of the guys, in your room that we see a bunch in, Miles Jackson, Linnell Carr, Anthony Jones, just, to name the guys that we see most often on Saturdays. And, I feel like a lot's put on those guys, right? I mean, they, obviously have some responsibility to get after the quarterback in passing situations, but you better hold up in the run game too, right? So how do you kind of talk about that balance with those guys?
Yeah, it's very it's a lot of technique driven things, right? Because some of those guys aren't as big as true defensive ends, but we ask them to do defensive end traits, and then we ask them to play linebacker traits where you're dropping in coverage, you're taking guys, in man to man, whether it be the back or a tight end. And so it's kind of it's a lot of technique and fundamental work. It's almost like they're a multi-tool, right? Like Swiss Army type knife. And then on third downs and packages, you can put those guys right wherever we want them. If you look at our victory when they're throwing Hail Mary at the end of the first half, and when they're throwing, at the end of the game, those are the 3 guys on our defensive line. It's Miles at the nose, and Anthony's at one end, and Linnell's at the other, because those are they're playmakers, number 1, right? But number 2, they're motors, their skill set, just to go, get after the quarterback, from that standpoint. So those are the guys that you want to have in those critical situations, those positions when your game's on the line. I mean, literally game's on the line, and those are 3 guys in there. So, it's awesome because it's not easy, right? And I think when you look at the room, they could all play a lot. And so I have to do a great job of kind of maneuvering and managing different personalities, also skill sets. I think, Linnell has shown his ability to rush the passer this year, a little bit better than some of the other guys. But, Miles is a great run stopper. And not that Linnell isn't. Linnell is one of the top leaders in TFLs in the Big Ten. So, but if you get in those 3rd and 1 power back situations, Miles is really good and very physical. Linnell is great with air and space and up and under tackles, and can make guys miss. And he's great at finishing off and closing down on ball carriers, and then you have Anthony, which again is almost like the Swiss Army knife of both. He's kidding. Physical. I mean, he is a big physical human being that can move. And so, trying to find the best fit for those guys, and just my hat's off to those 3 because they embrace it. And I think they understand that our competitive advantage in our room, that I try to stress to them, is if Linnell's in, you play as hard as you can play for 5 plays, right? As long, however long it is.
Sure.
Can look to the sideline. We can get the next guy in there. Miles, if you're in there, you go as hard as you can for as long as you can. And when you start, we can get the next guy in there. A lot of positions maybe don't have that depth. And sometimes we ask those guys, hey, you got to suck it up. But in a critical game in the fourth quarter, I'm rotating those guys. And, we don't, in my opinion, we don't really lose a step. And I've got to try to, manufacture and play some schematic things with those guys, because I do think some skill sets are better than others in certain situations. But that's my job as a coach, too, is to put those guys in an environment, a situation that they can, help our team, number one. And then number two, let them do what they do best.
And then, we also see Anthony quite a bit, when two tight ends come out and they go into some bigger sets offensively, and Anthony kind of comes in and plays a little bit of that, kind of maybe more traditional linebacker role. Is that kind of how you would describe that? How does that factor into how you have to work with him, as well?
Yeah, it's just time. I'm obviously in meetings. It's a totally different position from what our bulls, as we call them.
Sure.
It is totally different. There is some carryover for sure, but it's a space player as opposed to a on the line of scrimmage, 5 technique, 9 technique, 6 eye. So it is a space game, right? And our ability to be able to have somebody that can go out versus tight end sets and be physical at the point of attack. I thought at Penn State was his best game by far. He was very physical. He made those guys miss some space, made some big plays. I think he left some plays out there, and he knows that. He is still a redshirt freshman that did not play a lot at Oregon. So we have to remind ourselves at some point. You look at him and you're like, oh, this guy, but he is still a redshirt freshman, and he's impressive for a younger guy that doesn't have a lot of experience. His most experience has been here at Indiana, and I think he gets better every single week. But we like to. You can't be so predictable with him. I think he is a good pass rusher. I think he's great edge blitzer. He has the ability to play coverage out in space. He does a great job. He can play the flats. He can rally to the flats. We saw that versus Penn State, pushed deep, took away the corner out, jumped in the flat, made the tackle. Awesome. And he's 250 pounds. So having a guy that can move like that is physical, and can do a lot of good things. And I give him credit because he plays both. You got to have it mentally too. And so his IQ, his football IQ for a young man is really impressive as well. But he works his absolute butt off, and he deserves everything that he's got.
Love that. And now all three of those guys come to us from different programs, right? Yeah. Miles, Linnell, and Anthony. That's just the state of college football these days. But that said, is that also, more of a challenge, for you to get those guys not only ingrained in what we're doing scheme wise, but in, philosophy wise, in culture, in foundation, that sort of thing?
And that's all part of the recruiting. I mean, the biggest thing is, you number one, you tell them exactly what the expectation is. Yeah. If I were to, and I recruited all three of those guys. So I recruited Miles from UCLA. Hey, Miles, look, this is the situation we're in. This is our depth. This is the position we're going to use you, and if there's anybody that fit our culture, Miles Jackson is that. He is LEO. He is Indiana football, in my opinion. And so, he was all in on it. And then, you go to Linnell. Hey, look, we're graduating Lance. We have, we have Miles coming back, and this is a situation, that you guys get to compete for playing time. And, but this is a defense, and he has that skill set that he can drop. He could do things in coverage. Again, he's a great pass rusher. And then you recruit a guy like Anthony, who's a younger guy, and, you tell him the same thing. You try to let them know exactly what the expectation is, and at the same time, show them that opportunity that they have to come in and contribute. Sure. And I think that's the biggest thing is, I think all those guys believe in what we're doing here defensively, schematically, as well as culturally. They have to be the right fit for it. They're, like I just said, they're all three extremely unselfish young men that, want to do great things for not only themselves, but the team as well. And, the LEO culture, they completely believe in it.
Well, because if they didn't, and if it didn't fit, they'd have shut it down already.
Correct. And you're totally right. And it's easy to do that when you're not having success as a program.
Exactly right.
And you can look at the Penn State and last week and our guys. It's very similar to last year. The Michigan State game at Michigan State, where we're already out for bowl contention. And, it's easy for guys to kind of, pack it in, and it's below freezing and snowing and right. But that was our guy. It was a big
foundation.
win.
There's a culture win.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's what this felt like too against Wisconsin. And now you know that there's still something out there to play for too. And so that's really cool to see. So let's go back to that. Those last two drives, really, there's a lot of game management going on there, right? There's a lot of time management. There's a lot of strategy going on, especially, as we get the ball back, right? And, offense is driving down there. And so how's that communication go with you and Coach Allen and everybody on headset to say, all right, this is what we're going to do if we get into the fourth down situation, we don't get it on third, or we get a punt, from right there, because you certainly could have. Right. Yeah. Certainly could have taken a timeout and punted it with Jimmy. He's terrific at pinning guys deep, but you trust Chris Freeman out there and you trust the operation enough to go out there and kick the field goal. So can you kind of take us through that process just a little bit?
Yeah. So there is a lot of communication going on. I try to stay, I flip between defense and offense because obviously coaching those defensive guys, if we have adjustments we need to make or things like that, I'm over with Coach G and Coach Wilt making the adjustments and that stuff. But then I got to tell them, hey, I got to go over if the ball starts to move or if it gets to a third down, I got to click back and I can have those conversations. So we knew, number one, I thought Coach made an extremely smart decision taking the win in the fourth. Yeah, and I thought that was big. We knew that, Chris has the leg without a doubt. And there was even a point in time in the first half where it was a longer field goal going the other direction. And we were gonna kick a field goal. Now we lost yards on third down. We ended up having to punt. But, it was a long one. It would have been a 50-plus yarder, but we trust Chris. And, we trust his ability to kick those footballs. And so as that time was dwindling down and offense had the ball where they did, we were on the headset. I said, hey, we're in range. We're in Chris's range. Coach, it's your decision on what you want to do, how you want to play it. But, he can get this done. And Coach believes that too, and offense was able to, run the ball, pick up an extra yard or two, right there. And the clock's running. So now the situation becomes, okay, do you run it down?
Right.
Take a 5-yard penalty and pin them. I would take the 5-yard penalty. Yeah. It's hard, right? Because if you punt it, it would have been like a net 16-yard punt. And James can do that, but it's very difficult to place the football right on a short field when this kid has a monster leg. Yeah. So I would have, taken the 5. And we discussed this. Hey, do we take the 5-yard penalty and punt? Or you want to take a shot with field goal? Hey, let's take a shot with field goal. Great. Because obviously we trust in our field goal kicker and we trust in our operation. We trust in the protection. You have the win in that scenario. So, we just ran him out there and then we call it a turtle situation. So turtle is the clock is running. You're running the clock. They're standing around. You're trying to heat up as much of the 40-second play clock as possible. So you just, hey, turtle, which means slow it down. And then our operation is to, we have a certain time limit that we break the huddle and get everybody lined up. Chris can do his steps. The guys can get down to stances. And then we have a certain time operation where we start the cadence and we want to snap the ball. So that's all on the holder. And so but we practice it every single week and James executed it. Chris executed it. The PAT field goal team executed it to perfection. And, the clock was running the whole time. We never had to stop the clock, which means you get to eat more of it. I think we snapped the ball with about 3 or 2 seconds left on the play clock, which is exactly what you want to do.
It's awesome.
And the kicker was poised and, did his job.
And that's the thing, though, because, we still had a timeout at that point, right? We did. And so I'm thinking, all right, maybe they just take it down to 1, take it down to 1 on the play clock, call the timeout, set everything up. But, if you practice that every week, and you practice and you trust in the operation, you trust in the holder in Jimmy to control the situation, then why waste one? Correct. Why waste one when you can just kick it, which is so cool to see. And I'm glad to see that that James Evans is carrying on the tradition, the long held tradition of all Big Ten placeholders here in Indiana.
He's talking to one right now.
That's it. But it was great. And look, here's the other thing. For the second week in a row, Chris misses his first attempt of the game, but bounces back and makes even bigger kicks down the stretch. Yeah. So, and I feel like it's important for you guys as coaches, to exercise that confidence in him, right? Because I think it's pretty easy for a kicker, especially one in his first year in that role, to kind of lose that edge a little bit when something doesn't go right.
Yeah, I think that's a tribute to him. He believes in himself. He believes in his abilities, and he should. And we kind of had this conversation during camp of, hey, you're a damn good kicker. Like, he really is. I mean, he truthfully is, and it's hard because he doesn't have the experience, but he's 8 of 10 right now in the season. Right. But you look back at he had the clutch field goal. We don't beat Akron without his field goal.
No doubt.
Okay. He ties the game on the road in Happy Valley in the fourth quarter. And then he hits this one. He hits this one that completely changes how Wisconsin has to call it and how Matt gets to call it. So for us, I mean, that's as clutch of a kick as you can have to make it, hey, now they've got to go score. They can't just kick a field goal and tie it. Right. And Wisconsin has a really good field goal kicker. He is a good player. Now they were going into the win, but he has a good leg and he's a really good kicker. Wisconsin's is. So, it completely changes how their OC has to call it. Matt gets to call it, and just the mindset of our guys too. And not to mention the job he did on kickoffs.
I was going to say, what did they return one even?
No, he booted every single one out. Yeah. So, and again, that just alleviates, the stresses of having to go cover Big Ten returners, which everybody in the Big Ten has a good returner and everybody in the Big Ten is dangerous back there. So, you don't allow them to maybe get the ball where they want it. I mean, you look at us, we popped the first one for 34 and it gets you a little momentum for your offense and just, it shortens the field. Anything you can do to get the ball past the 25 in the return game is positive, and having the ability to have Chris be able to kick that thing out of the back of the end zone, and know that, hey, they're going to have to go 75 yards is what you want to do.
Pretty awesome. Exactly. To get the 6. And then, on the punt side of things, obviously James, since it feels like he's gotten healthier and those punts have come back, right? Those big ones. I know he wants one of those back, right? In this last game, but he's, probably no harder on himself. Nobody's harder on him than he is with that. And I love the way that he competes. But then on the flip side, on punt return, after a couple tough ones in the last 2 weeks, DQ goes in there and kind of settles things down a little bit. Is that how you would kind of characterize it?
Yeah. I mean, we, at the end of the day, it's my job to find the best guy back there that can secure the football and give us an opportunity to get our offensive ball back. And so, obviously we're on our third returner, at this point, and trying to find the right mix for us. All three of those guys have been back there this year. They work their absolute tails off, and they do a great job at it, but our job is to secure the football. You stopped them on defense, get the ball back for our offense. Let's just secure it. And then, hey, if we have the opportunity, let's pop one on them. So, called it a little bit more aggressively this past week with DQ in there. But trust his ability and trust his hands. And he's an older guy that's comfortable and confident. Coach, man, I got you. Let's go. All right, great. Let's go. So that's what you got to have. You got to have that spot. It's not an easy thing to do, especially in this conference with all the different punts you get. You get spirals, you get end over end, you get these Aussie kids that are left and right footed. Right. The ball goes opposite. Even James, James is hard to catch now. I mean, those bombs that he's been hitting now. Penn State's got an unbelievable punt returner. We're gonna play the number one punt returner in the Big Ten this week coming up. But having James being able to, that thing is tailing away and guys trying to catch it over their shoulder, and it's a skill set that not everybody has. I think we've got 3 phenomenal ones, but we've got to be more consistent at securing that ball for our offense and giving ourselves an opportunity to win games. So, that's where DQ has stepped up to the plate and was awesome, obviously.
Yeah. Well, it felt like a game where you could really, sit there and be proud of the way that, really all of the units went out there and performed, special teams. So I always talk about creating a winning edge, and it certainly felt like that's what you guys did this week. So love to see that. I know, the last one I wanted to hit you on is you got so much going on game day, man, right? You talked about it, clicking back and forth. You got, the core 4 special teams that you're obviously worried about on both sides of it, everywhere you go. And I know you get some really, high quality help from Coach Mack, right? On the special team side. But man, when the game's over, you just kind of go take a breath a little bit, kind of let that brain relax for a second.
I got up to my office after we celebrated in the locker room, obviously. I got up to my office, and my wife and my son were in my office, and then I had some friends in town, and I was like, hey, I need to sit down. I literally just I was like, just let me sit for a second, you know? So, but everybody's all excited. Yeah. You get to see them. So they want to hug and kiss you and ask how everything was. And there's no better feeling than celebrating a win with your wife.
Oh, man.
There's no doubt about it. But I was like, just let me sit. Well, my son comes up and Daddy sit. So he wants to sit on my lap, you know, and I'm holding. Great. I'm like, dude, just give me a sec. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I have one of our strength coaches, Justin Collette, is my get back coach, as we call it. A pretty aggressive on field guy.
Yes, you are.
I want to get a penalty, so he's constantly grabbing me by the neck and pulling me back. And I ask him after every game, how many steps did we get in? And he said we got 15,000 in on Saturday between 12 noon and 3:30. We walked about 7 or 8 miles. So that's just up and down. And
if that's what it takes to get the dub, man, let's go get it, right? Let's get that 15,000 for sure.
I was in better shape, but
no, we're gonna get there. Especially if we play 13, we get an extra couple of miles in.
That's right.
Well, look, man, this has been a lot of fun, and you're one of these guys who's been around, Indiana for a long time now, kind of spanning 2 different coaching staffs, and it's clear you got talent, and that's why people want to have you around here for as long as you've been, and we're lucky to have you, and we appreciate all the great work you do, man, and I look forward to catching up in Champaign this weekend.
That's right, brother. I appreciate you. I do.
All right, Casey Teagarden with us here on Under the Hood with IU Football, presented by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. Reminder to get out there and visit your local Central Indiana Ford dealer today. Reminder, we'll be back here with you on Thursday for another great episode of Indiana Football Live as we get you set for the opportunity number 10 for Indiana this season to go on the road to take on the Illinois Fighting Illini. We'll see you then, everybody.